Hello and welcome back to episode 3 of SomerKnits, a knitting podcast all about what I'm working on, what I want to work on, things I have bought, and other knitting chatter. Sometimes I get a bit long-winded, but hopefully you all enjoy sitting with me for a little bit. I hope you have your knitting and maybe a refreshing beverage. It is hot here today, so I have made iced tea with mint from my garden, and you can't see it right now because the glass is sweating, but a friend of mine made me this glass years ago, and it actually says Knit and Kitten on it, in however it is that you lightly etch the glass. Anyway, it's really cute, and it's something I've had for a long time and really treasure. So, let's jump right into the knitting. It hasn't been nearly as long between episodes 2 and 3 as it was between 1 and 2, so I don't have nearly as many finished objects to show you, but I have a lot going on and things that I want to do and things I'm very excited about. Once again, I'm having to film in my craft room because our living room is still full of camping gear, and the kids are here watching a movie, and hopefully they stay quiet long enough, but please pardon any glasses reflection that you might get from the lights. It requires a lot of light, apparently, to get a clear picture on my computer. I might try on my phone sometime and see if I can get a better picture that way, but who knows. For now, we're going to go with it because it's easier for me to see what I'm doing on the larger screen of my computer. So, my only finished object for this time is actually the Framework Bralette by Jessie Maed, and I am going to show it to you. I'm wearing it today, and I used Subculture yarns in DK in Ocean Pearl is the colorway. You can see this is it has faux seams along the front. It's supposed to look like a structured bralette. You could wear it as a crop top. There are instructions on how to adjust the fit if you want to wear it with a bra instead of as a bra. The back is the same as the front. Obviously, it just lays flatter. I did knit the ribbing a 1/4 inch longer than the pattern calls for. It calls for 2.25 inches, and I did 2.5 inches on the ribbing. I did make the 28-inch size, which is a size down from the pattern recommendation, but after reading all of the tester feedback and then the notes in the pattern about how to pick the best size for you, I decided that sizing down to the 28-inch was actually going to offer me the best fit, and I'm glad I did. It's good. And then I did wider straps. For my size, the pattern called for 4-stitch straps, and so these are 6-stitch straps, so just 2 wider. Let's see, I did the height of the cups to the pattern recommendation. There are very detailed instructions in Jessie Maed's pattern about how to pick the best size for you and how to calculate the different dimensions that you're going to want. So you actually do some personal measurements, and that gives you the height of the actual body. And then after you've done the whole body in the round, you do the top of each cup individually. And from there, you do the straps, and the straps meet at the top, and she recommends in the pattern that the front straps might need to be longer than the back straps because your back doesn't have as much that needs to fill out the bralette, and that is true. So my front straps are, I think, 3 inches, and my back straps they're pretty close. They're between 2.5 and 2.75 inches, so they meet at the top. I will say it has a very snug fit under the arm, and if I'd gone any longer on the straps, I don't feel like I would have had any support in the front. I'm going to adjust this so you can see it a little bit better. We're going to ignore my messy craft room. So I think that if I'd gone any longer in the straps, I wouldn't have had any support in the front, but if I had gone any shorter in the straps looking for more support, it would have been very uncomfortable under the arm because of how high the underarm comes up. And I'm not sure how to solve that. I'm sure it's something that the designer has run into, and maybe there are suggestions of a lower body height and longer top cups. I'm not sure. Or maybe I just need a tighter gauge. I did have to go down a needle size for the pattern for both the ribbing and the actual pattern. I went down a needle size in each, but I tend to have to go down a needle size in everything. So that was not unusual for me. I thought the pattern was very clear, very well written. It is size inclusive, so if you are worried about being on the larger or smaller end of the spectrum, there are great instructions about adjusting the fit and really getting the best fit for you. I think that I might go back in and sew elastic along where the ribbing meets the base of the bralette to give it more pull in, to give it just a little bit more of that support so that it doesn't ride up. Because over time, I feel like the straps may stretch a bit. I did kind of check during blocking to make sure that they're not going to overstretch. And I don't feel like they have too much give to them. They're actually nice thick straps because of the way she has you do them. But overall, I loved the pattern. It went so fast. It was very well written. Like I said, it was a great pattern to work from. So highly recommend. And that's the Framework Bralette by Jessie Maed. And of course, I'll link everything in the description. So I like to wear it under overalls, or I have some strappy summer dresses. But it is getting very, very hot where I live, in the mid to upper 90s Fahrenheit. But it's not really the heat that becomes the issue. It is the humidity. I turned the fan in my office down so that you wouldn't have to hear that fan noise the whole time. And I may start beading sweat because of it. Just the humidity is insane. I spent 2 hours weeding my garden right before this, and luckily had time to take a shower. So please excuse any dirt crusted under my fingernails. It's been raining a lot, so it was actually a good day to go weed. But like I said, hot and humid here, so knits like this are very appealing, but there are still times where you don't even want that knit fabric against your skin at all. So it just depends how you feel about having wool or whatever you pick as your material up that close against your skin the whole day. And I did buy silicone pasties to go under mine because I'm not 100% comfortable just wearing it as a bra. There is obviously a little bit of see-throughness. If it was a super tiny needle size, like maybe something you'd knit socks on, a 1, then potentially it wouldn't be see-through at all. Or if I had a thicker yarn maybe that really filled those gaps in, but then I think I'd be hotter. So just, take that for what it's worth. That's my review of the Framework Bralette, and I do really like it. And I think it'll be especially fun under long sleeve backless shirts as we edge into fall, or short sleeve ones, depending on the temperature and the day. But right now in the heat of summer, it is kind of like I either need to wear it like this where it's very open, or it's a little too warm for right now. But speaking of Jessie Maed, I have another of her patterns in my queue, and I really happened upon, well, I'd seen the pattern, but it really jumped to the forefront of my queue because I found this adorable yarn store in town that I didn't even know was there. Apparently it's been there for years, and they're about to move locations, but they will still be around, which is great. I was shopping for an exchange buddy, and I did make a video of packing my exchange box, but I don't want to share that until after she has received the box, and I know that she's already seen everything because I don't want any spoilers. So I'll share that after it's been received. But I was shopping mainly for that exchange box, so I tried really hard not to buy too much for myself. I really want to knit from stash this year as much as possible, and I know my acquisitions section may not seem like that, but it is a goal of mine to really work through some of my old stash. I see people comment on knitting from stash, especially in the stash along that's being run by Knitting Traditions, and I do it too. Like they're from, like, it's from early 2020 or it's from late 2019, and I'm like looking at yarn I have had since 2007 going, okay, I should knit this. Like, I really need to use it. I need to do something with these things and not just gaze at them. And yes, they're beautiful as they are. I mean, yarn collecting is its own hobby, but I really want to use those things. So even though it should go in the acquisition section, the reason the outline tank jumped to the top of my queue is because I happened upon this Mojave yarn, and it's by Kelborn Woolens, and it is it's a linen cotton blend. Let me find the blend. It is 60% cotton, 40% linen, and the light's blowing it out a little bit, but as you can see, it kind of matches my hair. And the day I was in the store, I had on shorts that were this color. I had recently painted my toenails this color. My hair is obviously this color. I was wearing a bralette and a backless shirt, and the bralette was this color, and it matched absolutely everything. And so it told me that it needed to come home with me, and there were only 3 skeins. And it is a 2, so a fine weight yarn, with a recommended needle size of 4 to 6. And I was looking at patterns specifically for this beautiful yarn because it's really nice on the hands, and I think it's going to be really nice against the skin, and I'm not going to get any of that sweatiness that I get with wool right now in the middle of summer. And the outline tank just kept popping up because it is on her list of recommended yarns. So I checked my yardage, and for my size, 3 skeins is enough. So I've already caked up one, so I only have 2 sitting here because I've already caked up one and done the gauge swatch. And I am going to have to go down a needle size. Nobody is surprised. But the outline tank is definitely on my to-do list. But I want to finish some whips first. And I'm trying to tell myself that finishing is important. Because I have cast-onitis right now, and the more podcasts I watch, the more things I want to cast on all at once, and I realized that I'm not actually finishing anything. Like this time I only had 1 finished object to show you. So some things that I have in progress. If you remember, I have been working on the V-back tee, and I was at a point last time where it was still very small, and I felt like I was just knitting so much and it just wasn't growing. And that's just kind of the nature of where I was in the pattern. But it really sped up. And once I had divided for the sleeves, it did feel like I had to go round and round for quite a while. But once I had divided for the sleeves and the stitch count went down a bit, it did seem to pick up. And so now you can see I've got, this is the front, the V part is the back, that I've got quite a bit here. And I'm doing now the short row shaping that brings this really long V from the back down to a level t-shirt. So really right now what we're knitting is the bottom of the front. We're going back and forth on the bottom of the front to meet the length of that V in the back. And based on the pattern measurements and my favorite fitting top, this should hit exactly where I want it to when I'm done. And so I'm super excited about it. I am probably going to do the sleeves just a little bit longer than the pattern calls for because they're super capped in the pattern. And I think that I'd be happier with a slightly longer sleeve. Not long sleeve, but like just a tiny bit longer than the pattern calls for. You can see that even though I was alternating skeins, I have gotten some pooling. Because of the shaping of this shirt, it doesn't bother me as much as it bothered me in the pattern I was using it for before, the Bolin, you can see, especially on the back, that once I'm wearing the shirt, the pooling is going to be very diagonal in nature once it's all blocked out and everything. So I actually think that it's pretty cool the way it comes in. So very happy with the V-back tee so far. Still got a bit of ways to go. That short row shaping is going to take quite a while. And then there's going to be more ribbing and then the sleeves. But I'm hoping to finish it up. I hope to have some knitting time over the holiday weekend. In the US, we're going into a holiday weekend for the 4th of July. So I hope to have some good knitting time over the holiday and get this at least close to finished up. There are a couple other things that I'm working on that I do need to commit some time to, and I will show you those. I am helping out a friend of mine, a wonderful designer, and if you haven't heard of her, you really need to look her up. Her name's Britt, but she goes by the Marvelous Mrs. Maker. You can find her on Instagram. Her patterns are available on Ravelry and maybe Payhip. I can't remember. I will link her info below, but look her up on Instagram because she's amazing and I have way more to say about her. But she asked for volunteers to help out to make a lap blanket for a friend of hers that's going through some medical things, and I volunteered. So I am working on a square for the Afghan, and I started it. I did a gauge swatch, which is, you know, something that I usually skimp on, but she had asked that we all swatch, so I did, and and it matches my hair. So this is the color yarn she sent me. There's a couple of colors going on in the blanket, a couple of patterns, but she sent the pattern and the yarn, and I am working on my square, and this is a raindrop pattern, and the yarn is Swish DK by Knit Picks, and I'm loving it in my hands, and I hadn't really worked with their Swish DK. I don't even think I'd worked with their worsted weight Swish before, and it's, of course, my camera decided to freeze. It's a fine superwash merino wool, and it's been lovely on the hands and very lovely to work with. So I'm making my blanket square, and it'll be approximately 1 by 1, 1 foot by 1 foot. So when I finish that, I'm going to block it out and send it to her, and I may not have it by the time I film again, so I will take a picture of the finished square, but you can see the pattern coming through. So I just started it last night after the kids went to bed, and it should knit up very quickly. And I think it's a wonderful thing she's doing, making this blanket for her friend. And so I'm just happy to be a part of that and contribute to that. And Britt has been such a good, fun friend to have. I had my colors done a few years ago, and Britt and I are both light summers in the TCI color system. And I can talk more about that another episode, but if you are interested in cohesive color palettes and how to knit for your own personal wardrobe for looking your best, you should really check out Britt's Instagram, The Marvelous Mrs. Maker. Like I said, I will link it below, but she's wonderful. Her patterns are amazing. I just can't say enough good things about her. She's a great person and a great designer. So I've got that going. I started some socks for my husband. Let's see if I can find them. Oh. So I started them, but I think I may pull them out because I'm not entirely satisfied. I started just a basic top-down ribbed sock. I haven't really done anything with it. But the whole reason I started it this way is I failed to take a longer pair of needles with me than these 9-inch circulars, and I had intended to do the DRK Everyday Socks by Andrea Mowry, forgetting that they were toe up and I needed to have some longer needles to do magic loop to start the toe. So it's not a lot of knitting, it's barely there. So I may just pull this all out and start over. This yarn, I like it, and I'm sure it's going to block out nicely, but it feels thinner than a lot of sock yarns, almost like a extra fine. Not lace weight, but it's just very fine. So I may have to even go down to a 0, because these are a 1. Because I'm such a loose knitter, I do have size 0 longer circs that I could do magic loop on, and it would be fine. I like these little 9-inch because I can just zip around and around and around. So maybe I need to order some size 0 in the 9-inch. But I started them, not sure I'm satisfied with them. I may extend my personal deadline on these socks to Christmas instead of his birthday, which is mid-July, because I want to have a finished object that I like, that he's going to like, and that he's actually going to wear. And he likes a nice, tight-fitting sock, not a loose sock. He won't wear it if it's loose or baggy. And I just want them to be right. Also, I would really like to do contrasting heels. And I don't have any solid black sock yarn. I'm not sure how that happened. But I may go pick up some black, because that's a good color to have on hand. You never know when you might want to do heels and toes in that or whatever. And then start over and do the toes and heels in the solid black. And then this for the foot and ankle. And maybe I'll even do the top cuff in the solid black. Give it just kind of a cohesive look. Anyway, not 100% sure on that, but not totally committed to how it is right now. So there is that. I think that is all that I have in progress that I haven't already shown you. I haven't made any progress on the Christmas stockings. I have not taken that cardigan out of timeout. Nothing else on the needles right this second. So I think that I have plenty on the needles, and if I finish that V-back tee, the outline tank I think is next. But I'm gonna do the blanket square first, then work on the V-back tee, then I think start in on that outline tank. But my list of things I want to do is getting longer and longer and longer. And the more things I work on at a time, the more I need to write down to keep track of what I'm doing. So I'm trying to write down more in my knitting journal, which a friend sent me last year during early quarantine, and it's been very helpful. But I did go ahead and start a page for myself on the V-back tee so that I actually remember months from now, maybe, or if I want to make another one, what I did, or why I did it. So I've actually started myself a page for that pattern, and I'm writing down as I go if I make a modification or what size I chose, why I chose it, gauge, yarn, everything. You can kind of see that there's spaces for all that stuff. And I had started trying to keep track of things at the beginning of quarantine. I did my weekender sweater and wrote quite a bit. And then there's the backs of pages also are lined so you can put additional notes. And then I just kind of got away from it because it's big and I can't necessarily carry it with me. So I jot notes in a tiny notebook. But like for my love note, I did come back when I was basically done and write in all the details so that I would remember, which was helpful when I did my daughter's love note because I had once again had to change needle sizes from the recommended, and at least I knew what I had done. So I recommend having a notebook that you write stuff down in, whether it's structured like this. I like prompts, or just like a little notebook like I write my podcast notes in. And that way you don't forget what you're doing, because Lord knows my memory isn't going to remember every single change, every single stitch, every single gauge that I've ever done because too many things. So, acquisitions. I mentioned that I found that amazing little yarn store, and they had some vintage buttons. and I grabbed a couple. I started texting my sister, and I can't remember where I have set mine down. It's probably downstairs in my knitting basket. But she had me grab a shamrock for her, and I'm going to knit a hat in either, she was thinking white or cream, because it's not a brooch. It's actually got a loop on the back. And then I'll just stitch it onto the beanie for her. I have one that I actually usually change brooches out on all the time. The pattern was called the pinch hat, and it's just gathered. And you kind of put the gather off to the side. I think it looks best if it's kind of in line with your eyebrow. And then I usually change out vintage brooches on it, but I'm going to go ahead and sew this on hers. And then I got myself one that is a sea turtle. And I have some light blue Malabrigo that's just been waiting for me to make it into a hat. It's a single skein, and I've had it for a long time, and it was gifted to me, and I've always thought it's my color, and it would just be a beautiful hat, but it needed to be the right hat pattern. So I have found a few options, and I am going to knit one up and sew that little sea turtle on, and I'm excited about that. But it will not be cold enough for hats here in Oklahoma until at least October, sometimes not even in October, maybe November. So I'm not going to worry too much. Although Andrea Mowry has a knit-along running right now for accessories, and I've been considering a couple of her patterns for that hat. So I may speed that up because a hat's a pretty quick knit just to get that in on her knit-along. And I guess the socks for my husband would also qualify for her knit-along if I can get them going and get that done. Megan Makes Do was, she had a stocking, and I bought this. But the main thing that made me finally pull the trigger, because her stuff is beautiful, but I don't usually go for geometric designs. I did love the colors in this one. But she was donating the proceeds, I believe, to the Trevor Project. And that was the thing that really made me pull the trigger. But it's a beautiful bag. You can see it's got a nice bottom. It's big and wide. Take the invoice out of there. Can hold quite a lot. It's lined. It's got a pretty little zipper pull. So I'm excited about this new project bag. It's very cute. And I will link her down below. I follow her on Instagram, and that can be a little too tempting sometimes. Maybe I need to not look at every shop update everybody does. But anyway, love this new project bag. Very excited about that. I showed you guys that I had that 13 weeks of summer calendar, for lack of a better term. And so a lot of people said I should open the larger skein, the whole skein, at the beginning for solstice. And I waited to open it with you guys. I did go ahead and start the weekly skeins. And I told myself, because solstice was on a Sunday, that I was going to open them one every Sunday. But I've actually ended up waiting till Monday each time, because a little pick-me-up on a Monday is never a bad thing. So skein number 1 was this grassy green with a little bit of speckles to it and some yellow. The color's really blowing out in the light here. Wonder if I have something white I can put behind it. Let's get that paper out of here. There we go. That helps. So you can kind of see that there's yellows in with that grassy green and some speckles in there. It's pretty. And then week 2 was this buttery yellow that I'm liking a lot. Tiny bit of brown speck in there, but mostly just the yellows. So very pretty. And then I thought that if you would pardon the crinkling, we could open the big one together. So this is fingering weight, 80% superwash merino wool, 20% nylon. The mini skeins are 80 yards, 20 grams each. This full skein is 400 yards, 100 gram skein. All right. Here, let's get that white paper again so you guys can really see the color. Make the computer do the white balance. So you can see that there's this almost purpley color in here and this peachy color, and there are golds twining through there. I hope you can see that. So lots of subtle color variation in there. We'll have to see. That might just be the string holding the skein together. Yeah. So that brown is just a fake out because it's just a string holding the skein together. There you go. Now you can really see there's those purpley bits, but it's mostly a peach with yellows. Very pretty for summertime. There's more of that purple there. There we go. Yay, white balance. So, very pretty skein. I'm excited to see what the rest of the calendar has in it, but I am definitely going to wait and open it week by week and not all at once. I know some people get them and they just can't wait, and I totally understand, but I love surprises and I don't mind the anticipation of waiting, so I am just going to wait it out and see what the rest of them bring, and I'll make sure to show them as I open them. But 13 weeks of summer, that's a long wait, so hopefully you guys stay interested. Let's see, what else do I have going on? I wanted to remind everybody about the Knit-along prize for the ranunculus. It's just a little set of stitch markers. They're cinnamon rolls, and I'm going to draw that sometime after July 31st. And so any participation photo where you use the hashtag WWRanunculusCowl is qualified to enter, as long as it's more than just your cast on. Anything from a finished pose to here's my progress, that works. I have thought about casting on a second ranunculus because it went so quickly and it was so much fun to knit. And I really like the 100% mohair ones that I have seen people do. So I'm considering doing one that is entirely mohair. And I haven't decided which color. I have quite a big stash and I definitely want to knit from stash to do that. So I'm going to go through and see what I have, what I would really wear, what goes with my wardrobe. You can probably tell that as a light summer, I wear a lot of bright colors. People have compared my color palette to popsicles, and that's a pretty accurate comparison for light summer. When you say light summer, a lot of people think it's pastel-y, and it's not. The bralette is actually deceiving because it's not 100% within my color palette. My color palette is bright and clear and bold and strong, cool leaning with a little bit of warmth in it. So I don't wear a lot of the earth tones that a lot of people who podcast are very into. So I get excited when people are like, oh, I knit with the same colors you do, because it seems like the majority of the shows that I watch or the podcasts that I watch are very into earth tones, and I find earth tones so beautiful, and I have a huge stash of earth tones because I'm so attracted to them, but then I put them on and I just look not quite right. Pale, a little bit sick sometimes, like that army green color really washes me out, and people will be like, are you tired? Are you okay? So bright colors give me more of a healthy look and definitely complement my skin better. My hair is naturally blonde, and yes, I lighten it to do these colors, but it is blonde on its own. So that brighter, more pop of color palette is just better for me overall. But I do have some stash stuff that I want to use up, and some of it I do want to use for myself, even if it isn't 100% within my color palette. So I'm working through figuring out what kinds of things I may want to do with that. One of the things that I am working on figuring out is I have some alpaca yarn, 100% alpaca from the farmer's market, and I need to do the calculation for yards versus weight to figure out what it might be, or wraps per inch, but I'm really guessing it's going to come out a DK weight, maybe sport at the thinnest, but I'm guessing a DK weight, and I've got quite a bit of yardage, but I think it'd be nice to have just a throw on pullover, loose gauge, maybe, just a comfy, not super structured, not super detailed even, because the yarn is kind of a more gray silver alpaca that's been plied with a darker brown, I think it was. I'll have to pull it out and show it. And they've been plied together, so I think that any pattern that's too busy is going to get lost because the yarn itself is going to look busy. So if you have a pattern in mind, feel free to throw that in the comments. I love the comments. I really have enjoyed chatting with so many of you, and every single comment is appreciated. So please drop that in the comments if you have suggestions there. If you have done any of the projects that I've been thinking about, like the outline tank, I'd love to hear about it. And obviously I'd love for you to join in the knit along that I'm doing with Woolly Witchcraft for the ranunculus. And I definitely plan on throwing a second one on my needles as soon as I can make a decision about what I want. So I'm curious also, how many of you make lists of what you want to knit, or goals for what you want to knit, or do you just wait until you finish something and then you see something else and you're like, oh, I'm going to cast that on? So I'd really love to know. I've kind of made, I kind of do both. So I've made myself a list of the things I want to accomplish for the rest of the year. But I know that I have room in between those things for the things that just grab my attention. I did set myself like one of those 9-picture grid goals at the beginning of the year that I definitely haven't finished, but I've kind of started to outline what I want to have for the kids in the fall and what I want to do for like for Christmas gifts and things, because it's never too early to start that nonsense. Deadline knitting is something that I just am trying to give up for the most part. So I don't want to wait until like October to be like, oh, I want to make 10 sweaters for Christmas, because it will not happen. So each kid kind of has a fall thing that they're going to get for just general wear, like for the school year. My son, I think I showed the rainbow yarn that he picked out, and he wants a hat and socks. And then my daughter, I know I showed in the last episode that mandala you can see right behind me is going to be a flax sweater that'll just be a generic play sweater for her. So I kind of have those things outlined, but also am trying to leave myself room to just throw in the things that grab my attention. I totally purchased a new pattern today because I saw it on Instagram and I went, oh, I probably have yarn for that. And it was cute, and it had lace panels on both sides, and it was a crop tee, and it was definitely summertime appropriate, and it took less than 800 yards for my size, so I need to just go through my stash, because I'm not ordering yarn. and see what I have that would work really well for that. It was a light fingering weight. I know I have a big stash of that. So let me check and see what the name of that pattern was, and I'll definitely link it below. Okay, it was the Petal Party Crop by Samantha Guerin. I probably butchered that last name, and I sincerely apologize. But it was release day today, so it's 15% off. So I'm going to throw that down in the notes below because it's really cute. I took a gander at all the tester photos, and every one of them was just beautiful. So it's lace side panels, and the front is solid, and it's a crop fit short sleeve tee in a light fingering weight, and that's like the thing that is speaking to me right now. Lightweight SomerKnits. Haha, no pun intended, but lightweight, cropped, but not like super cropped. I do want things to go past the waistband of my jeans. I don't want to be necessarily showing skin all the time. And I feel like I have more flexibility with my knits if they go at least to the top of my hips. And also, I have done some fit tests where I just feel like that is the most flattering fit for my body type, is to go to the top of the waistband of my jeans or right to the top of my hips. So I am looking forward to spending more time perusing that pattern and so many that keep coming out. Camille Knits has a high neck, bow in the back, open back summer tee pattern that I am dying to make, but I need time to sit down and read the pattern, figure out my yarn. That one's a DK, which I don't have as big a stash of, so I would need to figure out what I wanted to use, but it's just, ever since I saw the very first sneak peek of that one, it's been on my serious to-do list. So I want to hear what's on your to-do list. I would like if you shared with me in the comments what's coming up, what you are dying to cast on. Tell me what you're working on. Just chat with me. So I think that is all for this week. Hopefully I can get to recording on a regular basis like this. It might keep the episodes a little bit shorter. I might have fewer finished objects each time, but I enjoy the time we spend together. So I will see you again soon. Jumping back in real quick, because I totally forgot during the acquisition section that my husband gave me shorty needle tips as an anniversary present. We had our 11-year wedding anniversary recently, and so he gave me this whole set of shorty needle tips, and they are so pretty. Let me get them out. You really wonder about some white balance here so that maybe you can see the colors of the wood. They are beautiful. I know they're really hard to see, but there's like greens and reds and blues and kind of a purpley color to the wood. They're really pretty needle tips. And I think they go all the way from size 4 to 10 in the shorties. And they go with the Knit Picks shorty cables for their options needles. There you go. There's some of that color. And I have the larger size sets in the nickel and the clear acrylic. But I really loved the color of the wood for the shorty tips, and so that was a wonderful anniversary present surprise, and I wanted to share them on the podcast, and I had totally forgotten to grab them, so I ran back downstairs and just wanted to pop that in real quick.